I knew something was off the moment Tyler called the server room the internet basement and asked if we could just add more megabytes to fix latency. That should have been my first clue that the upcoming investor demo was heading for a flaming disaster. But no. My first real clue came 3 days later when Greg, my manager with all the emotional intelligence of a wet sock, told me to sit outside during the biggest investor pitch of the quarter, while the CEO's son presented my work. Let me paint you a picture. I was 3 sips into my burnt office coffee, we're running QA on our real-time analytics dashboard before the investor meeting, when Greg strolled in, holding a styrofoam cup like it made him powerful. His eyes slid right past me like I was a dusty monitor in the corner. "Hey Jennifer," he said, smirking like a raccoon who found an open trash can, "Tyler's gonna handle the demo today. Big optics play. Investors love seeing the next generation involved. We'll need you to just, be available. Maybe wait outside the boardroom?" I stared at him deadpan. "Available where exactly?" Greg chuckled. Like just around, in case something needs plugging in. There's a special kind of rage that bubbles when someone talks to you like you're a sentient surge protector. I blinked slowly, smiled tighter than my VPN firewall, and said, "Sure thing, Greg, I'll be available." As I packed my laptop, I caught Tyler practicing buzzwords like he was auditioning for a middle school spelling bee. Elastic infrastructure? No, wait. Scalable? Yeah, scalable throughput. He adjusted his tie and winked at me like we were in on some inside joke. He didn't even know what throughput was. That's when it hit me, this wasn't neglect. This was a deliberate erasure, and I'd seen it coming. I didn't rage, didn't cry. I walked out of that office with a calm only a woman who's been underestimated for 15 years can perfect. By the way, if you've made it this far and you're feeling even 10% of the rage I felt in that moment, do me a favor, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Seriously, 90% of people who hear stories like this never subscribe, and it really helps the team keep exposing these glorious implosions of corporate stupidity. Back to Greg and Tyler. See, what they didn't know was that I had been laying bricks in the foundation of that dashboard for years. Our backend, my architecture. Permissions, built by me. Live graphs that would be used to dazzle the investors, all routed through credentialed query chains that, if left untouched, would silently expire unless re-authenticated by the root token, which lived, funny enough, inside my encrypted keychain. But sure, send in Tyler with his tooth-whitened smile and freshly printed business cards that still smelled like Office Depot. I could have made a scene, could have called Greg out, could have outed Tyler mid-sentence and reminded the room that I'd been up until 2 a.m. 3 nights straight tuning the anomaly detection engine to avoid false positives. But instead, I sat in the lobby, quiet, composed, and watched from my phone as the internal metrics dashboard started logging queries from the demo server. It made me laugh, honestly, not the warm kind. The kind you make when the universe gives you an open field, a match, and says, "Go ahead." The investor deck they were using still included the live demo environment. Greg, in his infinite wisdom, had told Tyler to just click around and talk confidently. Tyler, in the human LinkedIn post that he is, agreed. Neither of them realized that without my certificate, those graphs were set to time out after 60 minutes of non-root validation. And guess what no one had? I checked the logs, watched the queries run, saw the expiration timestamp ticking down like a bomb in a spy movie. Then I tucked my phone away and went for a walk. There's a difference between being invisible and being underestimated. They thought I was unplugged. Forgotten, just a tired IT woman in flats and an oversized hoodie. But I wasn't gone, I was just waiting. Greg didn't even have the decency to lower his voice. I was finishing my final notes on the authentication handler, because yes, even an hour before the pitch, I was still cleaning up their mess when he popped into my cubicle like a dollar store jack-in-the-box. "Hey Jennifer," he started, voice soaked in fake warmth, small change. "Tyler's gonna run point on the demo. Execs think it'll really land better if he walks them through the platform. Family vision, legacy, all that jazz." I didn't say anything. Just stared at him, blinking slowly like my brain was buffering. He grinned wider. "We still need you nearby, of course, in case something hiccups. So maybe hang in the lobby, be available if we need a little tech backup." Tech backup. I wanted to say 1,000 things, most of them involving an HR violation and a blunt instrument, but I didn't. I closed my laptop, stood up slowly, and smiled. Not the fake workplace smile. The one that means something is about to detonate, and I hope you're wearing flame-resistant khakis. "Of course," I said. "Wouldn't want to interfere with the legacy." Greg nodded, clearly pleased he'd diffused the tension he never noticed he caused, and he turned and strutted toward the conference room like he'd just solved world hunger with a flowchart. I walked past the boardroom glass, slow and calm. Tyler was already inside, flipping through the investor deck on the massive screen, practicing buzzwords he'd stolen from my internal wikis. Cloud-native scalability rolled off his tongue like a kid reading Latin. He had my diagrams, my dashboards, on full display. He had no idea how much of it hinged on a back-end system that would soon ask for certificate key when he did not possess. That's when my smile widened. See, when I built the demo environment, I built it like I build everything, secure, not just to keep out hackers, but to keep out morons. The real-time graphs were wired to a live data stream, one that required tokenized authentication every hour, tied to my admin chain. And the visualizations, they were connected to a cloud runner I sandboxed months ago. Something I kept separate from the shared DevOps paths because, surprise, Greg once tried to override a credential and nearly tanked our QA system. They thought they'd get the dog and pony show without the dog. I took a seat in the lobby. Not near the windows, not by reception, just across from the hallway, where I could see the shadow of Tyler gesturing wildly inside the room. He was probably explaining event triggers to a group of investors with more money than sense. And Greg, likely nodding along, adding phrases like data optimization and Jennifer's done a great job getting us here, like I was a loyal pet instead of the person who architected the entire damn platform. My phone buzzed, Slack notification. Greg, 12:57 p.m. Keep your phone nearby just in case we hit a glitch. Just in case. I set the phone face down. You know what that moment felt like? It felt like watching someone try to hotwire a spaceship with a coat hanger. They didn't even understand what they were stealing. They just knew it looked shiny and made investors nod. But I wasn't angry anymore. Anger takes energy and they weren't worth it. What I felt was something colder, like a surgeon drawing a scalpel, not out of rage, but routine. I'd been humiliated by men like Greg and Tyler my whole career, and who assumed quiet meant weak, that politeness meant obedience, that because I wasn't loud, I wasn't watching. I sipped my coffee and glanced at the screen above reception. They were projecting the live dashboard. Looked great, sharp visuals, clean data, everything rendering perfectly. But I knew what they didn't. That timer was ticking. And the system doesn't ask for permission before it expires. It just stops. 60 minutes. They had no idea the leash was still in my hand. By the time I got home that night, the silence in my apartment felt radioactive. I dumped my bag on the couch, peeled off my blazer like it owed me money, and stood in the kitchen staring at the microwave clock. The digits glowed back at me, 8:13 p.m., but all I saw was Tyler's smug little grin as he pointed at my diagrams like he drew them in crayon. My feet ached, my jaw was clenched so tight, I could hear my molars whispering legal advice. My brain wouldn't shut up. Maybe I should have walked into that boardroom and unplugged the HDMI cable. Or better, projected my name in 72-point font across the screen and walked out to a standing ovation of gasps and lawsuits. But instead, I sat like a ghost in the hallway while a nepotism case study in khakis butchered my life's work. I opened the freezer, pulled out the emergency pint of peanut butter swirl, and collapsed onto the couch like a punctured beach ball. That's when Sasha called. "Tell me you didn't just let that frat boy with a business minor take credit for your system," she said before even saying hello. I smiled, I nodded, I waited outside, I mumbled through a mouthful of ice cream. She groaned. "You should have burned the building down, or at least posted something spicy on LinkedIn." I've got a template, something like, "Day I was reminded that silence in the face of theft is complicity." Boom, viral, I laughed, but it was hollow. Yeah, and then what? Get 35 likes, a pat on the head, and still be jobless while Tyler updates his resume with my code? She sighed, softer this time. "You're not jobless, yet. But you need to do something, Jen. You don't just let people steal your oxygen and call it a promotion." After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. I thought about quitting, really quitting. Walking away from the late nights, the coffee breath stand-ups, the broken promises about visibility and career mapping. Maybe I'd take a sabbatical, hike some dumb trail, freelance for nonprofit, let someone else drown in Greg's incompetence and Tyler's cologne. I even opened a job board tab, scrolled, saw 5 listings asking for rockstar engineers and one that used the word ninja. Closed it again. Then I opened a different folder. It was buried deep in my personal files under an innocuous name, Weekly Metrics Review 2. Inside, a single PDF. Title, "If They Try This." I clicked it open, heart pounding. It wasn't a revenge plan, not exactly. It was a contingency blueprint. Flowcharts, dependencies, token access paths, fallback credentials. I'd started it 6 months ago when Greg first suggested Tyler should get more hands-on experience. Something about his tone made me nervous, like he was building a case I didn't know I was on trial for. At the center of the flowchart was a red box. Critical path, backend certificate token required, JS root private below that, an arrow pointing to a simple note, only stored locally. No cloud backup, no admin override, and I remembered something. A conversation with my old boss, Mia, the only person who ever treated me like more than a cog. "You don't need to yell to make people listen," she told me once. "Just make sure when they finally realize you're gone, they feel the silence in their bones." I stared at the flowchart for a long time. The temptation to burn it all down was strong, but that's not what I wanted. I didn't want chaos. I wanted clarity. I wanted them to see, with crystal precision, exactly what they had erased. And I wanted the erasure to echo, leave a hole so obvious that even the boardroom suits with their limited Wi-Fi could feel the draft. I closed the document, got up, and made a cup of tea. I wasn't quitting. I was preparing, and the timer on that dashboard, it was still ticking. I woke up the next morning with the kind of clarity that doesn't come from sleep. It comes from decision. A clean, hard-edged certainty like a scalpel on steel. Greg had made his move. Tyler had paraded in like a Labrador with a Wi-Fi password. The investors had clapped politely. But none of them understood what they were clapping for because none of them knew where the arteries ran or who held the clamp. Spoiler, it wasn't Greg. And it sure as hell wasn't Tyler. I brewed my coffee, sat cross-legged at my kitchen table, and logged into my GitLab account. The real one, not the sanitized, team-shared sandbox they thought I worked from. I mean the root of roots, the ghost branch buried under personal keys and admin-only labels. The one no one but me had touched in 2 years. Merge history loaded. I scrolled. Every major commit tied to the real-time platform had my name next to it. Every credential group, every permission container, every chunk of back-end scaffolding had been architected, reviewed, approved, and sealed by me. I'd never noticed that I routed core authentication through decentralized micro-permissions. They thought I did that for security, which I did, but also for control. I opened the token access map. There it was, split neatly across 3 permission trees: DevOps, System Admin, and Redline QA. I built them that way so no single role could escalate privileges without touching at least 2 nodes I managed directly. Smart, safe, invisible, and untransferable. I smiled, remembering something Mia once told me. She was my first mentor, back when I still believed in company loyalty and performance reviews that actually meant something. She was a DevSecOps whisperer, ran a 6-person department with a death stare and a dry wit so sharp it could cut drywall. One night, years ago, we were sitting in the server room during a rollback firestorm. I was panicking over a missed patch deadline. Mia just leaned back and said, "Jen, you don't need to bark to bite. Just make sure the leash is in your hand. That way when they forget who fed the dog, you can let it off." At the time, I thought she meant it metaphorically. Now, I understood. They'd replaced me in title, but not in infrastructure. They dressed Tyler in my diagrams and fed him my words. But underneath that boardroom theater, the system still spoke my name in every line of its bones. I didn't touch a single file, didn't wipe logs, didn't reroute or corrupt anything. That would have been too loud, too suspicious. Instead, I disabled one fallback permission. Just one. The silent failover protocol, an obscure little script I built as a safety net during live demos. If the main token wasn't validated in time, it would quietly switch to a secondary auth path with limited access. Enough to keep the graphs running. Enough to save face in front of a crowd. That script had saved Greg's ass twice already. He didn't even know it existed. Now, it was gone. I left everything else untouched. Let the system hum along like nothing happened, because nothing had yet. Then I drafted a message in my notepad. To legal at Blue Shield internal subject. For distribution only if requested attached. Audit logs, credential assignments, permission trees, Slack transcripts. I didn't send it. Just saved it to a secure folder and backed it up to my encrypted drive. People think sabotage looks like fireworks. It doesn't. It looks like a quiet checkbox. A disabled line of code. A missing token that no one notices until the system stops breathing. I closed GitLab, finished my coffee, and walked out the door. The leash was still in my hand. And the dog? Oh, it was starving. It came as a calendar invite. Subject, org realignment update required attendance. Sender, HR. I almost didn't open it. I was halfway through debugging a latency spike on the West Coast node. Coffee in one hand, a stack of Greg's half-baked Jira tickets in the other. But something about the title, it had that corporate bullet in an envelope vibe, made me click. The meeting was set for 4:00 p.m. No agenda, no prep materials, just a link and the words all technical staff. At 3:58 p.m., the HR director appeared on screen with a frozen smile and dead eyes. Greg sat beside her, hands clasped like he was about to sell timeshares. "Thanks everyone for joining," she chirped. "We're excited to announce a new hybrid leadership model to support Blue Shield's growth trajectory and investor confidence. Cue slide 1. New hybrid leadership model: Tyler Green, Acting Director, Platform Strategy Greg Holland, VP. Product and Infrastructure my name? Not there, not even a footnote. We deeply appreciate Jennifer's past contributions in building the real-time platform," Greg added, without blinking. "But as we move forward with investor alignment and optics optimization, this transition ensures we're presenting a unified narrative." Translation: we stuck the CEO's son on top of the cake and hope no one notices it's made of cardboard and lies. Someone in the meeting dropped a "Congrats, Tyler" emoji. HR smiled harder. My inbox pinged. Slack permissions changed, channel access updated, admin panel notice your console privileges have been updated by admin Greg H. I didn't scream, didn't cry, just stared at the screen while my Slack sidebar began shrinking before my eyes. Private dev channels gone, audit logs revoked, admin console dead, but they didn't touch the skeleton key because they didn't know it existed. I built a separate pipeline years ago, not out of paranoia, out of necessity. When you're the only one keeping a product from sinking, you learn to build lifeboats nobody else can touch. Mine lived in a sidechain of our cloud architecture, disguised as a maintenance fork for legacy schema testing. No one ever asked questions because asking questions required knowing what a schema was. I opened it now. Everything still intact. Tokens clean, certificates verified. Permissions unaltered because I never routed that pipeline through corporate SSO. I routed it through me, and they forgot I existed. The funny thing is, Greg thought he'd locked me out, that stripping my access and handing the keys to Tyler would keep the gears turning. He didn't understand that I was the one who built the damn engine, and that I'd installed the kill switch under my own name, right where no one would look. I could have nuked it all right then. Just wipe the demo environment and let the dashboard flatline. But no, that would be impulsive, and I wasn't feeling impulsive. I was feeling surgical, so instead I did one thing. I took the backup key, the final certificate that authenticated the live dashboard's data feed, and dropped it into my encrypted archive. The same drive where I kept my resignation letter. The same folder as the audit trail. One clean copy, air-gapped. Local only. Then I shut my laptop, not slammed, not thrown, just closed, like a chapter. The room was quiet. The air tasted like stale betrayal and recycled oxygen. Somewhere on some Slack thread I no longer had access to, Greg was probably congratulating himself on streamlining the org. Tyler was practicing the difference between throughput and upload speed. HR was checking boxes and scheduling diversity training. And me, I was preparing to disappear so thoroughly, they'd spend months trying to figure out why their castle was sinking, never realizing I took the foundation with me. There's a strange kind of peace in watching your own erasure, especially when you're the one holding the eraser. The next morning, I woke to a message from Greg in my inbox, timestamped 2:11 a.m. Hey Jennifer, just wanted to make sure the backend infra is ready for tomorrow's pitch. Everything good to go, right? No greeting, no thanks. No sign he understood the fire he was walking into wearing gasoline loafers. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. By then, the trap was already set. And they'd already crawled inside, blissfully unaware that the walls were made of my fingerprints and silent expiration timers. At 10:03 a.m., I walked into the cafe across from the office, ordered a dirty chai, and sat by the window like a woman who didn't just watch her career get hollowed out by idiots in khakis. Tyler was visible from where I sat, through the third-floor conference window. He had a whiteboard marker in one hand and what looked like a YouTube transcript in the other. I watched him point to a printed slide and say throughput, then correct himself with no wait latency. No elastic scaling, like he was reciting magic words that would open the investor treasure chest. Greg hovered behind him like a proud dad watching his son tie his shoes with spaghetti. Meanwhile, I opened my phone and did something radical. I booked a 90-minute massage. Deep tissue, full silence, no tech. I scrolled to my calendar app, paused for one delicious second, and left the time slot unblocked. No out of office. No in a meeting. Just good all available. Let Greg sweat. Let HR wonder. Let Tyler assume I was waiting in some dark room with a laptop, ready to jump in if his pitch started buffering. They didn't know that the real system, the demo backend they were counting on to wow their suits, was already breathing through a paper straw. One that would collapse the minute it wasn't pinged by my certificate. Because here's the thing about my platform. To keep it secure, I designed the live dashboard to require an admin heartbeat, a quiet, backend credential ping that renewed access every 60 minutes. It was elegant, invisible, and completely undocumented because documenting it would mean trusting someone else with the knowledge. Greg never asked how it worked. Tyler didn't even know it existed, but I did, and I knew exactly how long they had before the heartbeat expired and the whole demo slid off a digital cliff, and I wasn't going to be around to catch them. My phone buzzed. Sasha. Sasha heard from Sandra in DevOps. Tyler just asked if data has to be real-time in real time. I'm dying. I sent back a skull emoji and muted the thread. They'd spent the past week stitching together pieces of my work like a bunch of drunk tailors trying to fake a designer dress. Greg had even quoted my old internal memo on data fidelity in the pre-pitch investor call, word for word. I wrote that memo 2 years ago at 1:30 a.m., while cleaning up the aftermath of his botched API migration. Now he read it like scripture, without understanding a single damn word of it. I left the cafe, tossed my coffee in the trash, and walked 2 blocks to the spa. The receptionist smiled, asked if I had any injuries or areas needing extra attention. Just the back, I said. Been carrying dead weight for years. She laughed. I didn't. As I undressed and lay on the table, I let my phone buzz a few more times. Slack pings, calendar reminders. A message from Greg, probably checking if the failsafe thingy was still active. I turned the phone off. Powerless. Peaceful. In a high-rise across the street, Greg was checking the dashboard every 10 minutes. Tyler was probably rehearsing lines in the mirror like he was pitching to Shark Tank. HR was finalizing investor press blurbs with phrases like seamless transition and next-gen leadership. But none of them noticed that the dashboard's lifeline was already slowing. The data stream would hold for now, the graphs would pulse. But under the surface, the system was asking the same silent question every 60 minutes. Is Jennifer still here? And when the answer was no, the silence would be loud. I closed my eyes and let my shoulders unclench. Let them rehearse. Let them gloat. let them depend. At 2:47 p.m., exactly 3 hours after the investor demo kicked off, the graph started twitching. Not crashing, twitching, slowing down, stalling mid-animation like a buffering YouTube video in 2007. The investor deck, beautifully designed by a summer intern with a Canva addiction, was still open on the big screen in the boardroom. But the real-time metrics, my metrics, were lagging behind. Greg noticed first. He tapped Tyler's elbow with that frantic, overcompensating keep talking smile managers wear when they've just realized they forgot to put gas in the car on the way to a wedding. Tyler, blissfully oblivious, kept pointing to a slowly dying bar graph on slide 9 and saying words like resilience and machine learning like he was reading from a fortune cookie. And then the graph froze. Hard. Seconds later, across all 4 dashboards, a bold red banner appeared. Real-time dashboard authentication expired. Greg's face, according to Sasha, who was monitoring from a different floor, went completely white, not pale, white like someone unplugged his blood. He leaned over the laptop, smacked the trackpad, and hissed, "Refresh it." Tyler clicked, nodded like everything was fine. The screen blinked, reloaded, and then nothing. Blank frames where the charts had been. No graphs, no numbers, just the error repeating like a drumbeat. Dashboard authentication expired, token not found. Tyler laughed nervously. Little hiccup. 1 sec, must be a caching thing. One of the investors leaned forward. A woman in a navy suit with hair that screamed, "I fund empires and bury startups before lunch." She raised an eyebrow and asked, "Is this what your clients will see if the system goes down?" The room went still. Greg cleared his throat. No, this is just the demo environment. It's sandboxed, isolated, we have a fallback. I'll just ping IT. He grabbed his phone. Dialed, no answer. Again, voicemail. And straight to deadline. Because I was IT, and my phone was off. Back in the spa lobby, I was sipping cucumber water with a towel around my shoulders and zero intentions of saving anyone's dignity. My phone, snug inside my bag, was as unreachable as I felt the day they erased my name from the org chart. Back in the boardroom, Tyler had now fully melted into panic. "Can we call I dunno whoever managed this before? Jennifer?" One of the junior analysts whispered. Greg glared. "She's not involved anymore, but she built this." I said she's not involved. Sasha messaged me a play-by-play from her desk with the glee of a teenager live texting a soap opera. Sasha, 3:12 p.m. Greg just told the top VC that the system is resensing across endpoints. The guy asked if that was a real term. Sasha, 3:14 p.m. Tyler tried to blame the network. Investor guy pulled out his phone and streamed ESPN to prove the Wi-Fi works. Sasha, 3:16 p.m. Greg just said this is why we need to build redundancy into our stack. I'm howling. I leaned back and smiled. The system hadn't crashed. It hadn't been hacked. It hadn't even failed. It had simply asked for me and, finding me gone, shut the doors like a loyal dog curling up by the grave of its master. Everything was working as designed. No one screamed. No one threw chairs, but the energy in that boardroom had shifted from smug showmanship to contain the fallout triage. Phones were buzzing. Laptops were clicking. Investors were whispering to assistants. Tyler finally muttered, "Can someone call her?" Greg's jaw clenched so tight, I bet he could have cracked a stylus with his molars. They could call all they wanted. But the moment passed the second they thought I was replaceable. I wasn't angry anymore. I was watching a system follow orders perfectly because the person it trusted was me. And now that I was gone, it was simply obeying its final instruction: do not validate anyone else. The system didn't crash, it simply refused. At 3:37 p.m., the dashboard blanked completely. Not a flicker, not a warning this time. No animations freezing mid-load, no graphs hesitating like they needed permission. Just an empty shell. 4 white panels and a silent little modal floating in the center of the screen. User key not found. That was it. Black text. Gray box, no recovery link, no contact support, no backup route. Greg stared at it like he was trying to will it into meaning something else. Tyler looked like someone had slapped him with a spreadsheet. "Wait, what does that mean?" he muttered, pressing keys that didn't respond. Greg mumbled something about a corrupted cache, and something about credentials needing to refresh through the cloud. He tried logging into the admin console using his access. It didn't work. He tried Tyler's credentials. Nothing. He finally turned to the junior analyst in the room and snapped, "Call IT." She blinked. Who, like specifically? Whoever's on call. I think that was Jennifer. Greg's phone came out so fast he nearly flung it across the table. He called once. No answer. Again, no answer. A third time. Straight to voicemail. I was back in my apartment by then in pajama pants with a glass of wine and a bowl of popcorn, watching a wildlife documentary while Greg spiraled like a deflated bounce house. Call 4, 5, 6. By the 7th, he didn't leave a message. He just stared at the screen like it had betrayed him too. Then Tyler emailed. Subject, quick Q, "Hey Jennifer, hope you're doing great. Quick question. Do you know why the dashboard might be showing user key not found? No worries if you're busy, just thought you might have insight." 2 minutes later, a call, then another. By the time I checked my phone, it was 5:12 p.m. and I had 37 missed calls. Greg, Tyler. 2 from an unknown number that was probably someone's executive assistant trying to put out the PR fire already flickering behind the tinted glass of the investor boardroom. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my archived inbox, the one tied to the bit support at Blue Shield internal alias, the one Greg never asked about, the one I built, maintained, and monitored for years, and never told anyone had been quietly redirecting all IT queries straight to me. I watched as Tyler's replacement, a guy named Lance, who once confused two-factor authentication with a second password, sent a frantic email, subject, urgent need backend access message, system down, can't access logs, can't ping server, getting modal message token key, need full access ASAP, investors are still here, PLS help, it bounced, because I had archived the alias 10 minutes earlier, not deleted, archived, locked in a cold folder titled Legacy Chains Retired Systems. It was like watching them knock on the door of a building that had already been condemned, realizing they were the ones who burned it down. Sasha messaged me from her personal phone. Sasha, they're falling apart. Greg told a board member it was a third-party outage. Tyler said maybe Jennifer sabotaged it, and Sandra from HR just asked if you're still under NDA. I took another sip of wine and replied, me, tell them to check the system log. Everything traces back, because that was the final twist. The final turn of the screw, every single failure, every timeout, every expired session, every credential rejection. All of it led back to one signature, token, J. Simmons Authorized. That string had lived quietly in the guts of the system for years. Not hidden, not encrypted in some mystery vault. Just present, honest, loyal, invisible unless you knew to look. They never looked, because they assumed I'd always be there. A ghost behind the screen, a button they could press when something broke, name they could erase from the org chart without consequence. But I wasn't a button. I was the architect, and the house had just locked its doors. At 6:04 p.m., I powered my phone back on. The screen lit up like a slot machine on fire, Slack pings, missed calls, voicemails, texts from numbers I didn't recognize, and 2 frantic emails with subject lines in all caps. But one message stood out. It was from Greg. Short, no greeting, no smarmy emojis, just desperation dressed up as civility. Greg, please, what do you need to fix this? I stared at it for a moment, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed nothing. I was never broken, no anger, no sarcasm, just the truth. Then I opened the folder labeled Break Glass, zipped its contents, log trails, merge request timestamps, credential documentation, security audit receipts, and Slack captures. The screenshots alone told a perfect story. Greg approving Tyler's promotion. HR quietly removing my access. Tyler asking if data latency is like a video buffer. And the system responding, again and again, with exactly what it was programmed to do. I opened a fresh email window and typed out the final message. 2. Legal at Blue Shield internal subject. Formal resignation plus system transition log body. Dear legal team. Attached you'll find the complete audit trail related to the recent demo environment failure, including credential assignments, dashboard permissions, and backend authentication protocols. Please note, all systems operated as designed with no tampering or malicious interference. As of today, I am submitting my formal resignation from Blue Shield Systems, effective immediately. One final request, please remove me from the non-essential personnel list. Permanently. Regards, Jennifer Simmons. I hit send. Closed the laptop. Breathed. No mic drop. No grandstanding ovation. Just an exhale. Somewhere across town, Greg was probably pacing the boardroom like a caged animal, refreshing the dashboard every 10 seconds like a slot machine might suddenly pay out. Tyler was Googling authentication errors and trying to figure out if VPNs could be emailed. Legal was skimming through the audit logs and seeing my name stamped across every system failure they thought was just glitches. But the real moment of silence, it belonged to me. Because when I said I was never broken, I meant it. I'd done my job. I'd built the thing they sold. I'd carried it on my back while they pitched it like a magic show. And when they decided to erase me, they forgot the simplest rule of architecture. You can't remove the foundation without watching the whole damn thing come down. No fury, no vengeance, just engineering. I poured another glass of wine and stepped out onto my balcony, the city humming below. I didn't smile. I didn't laugh. I just watched the lights flicker in the windows across the skyline, wondering how many other women had built things for people who never bothered to learn how they worked. In some conference room, Greg hit refresh again, and again, and again, never realizing it was never his to control. Appreciate you sticking around, you legends of the break room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old manager spill their coffee in fear.